This is Eye on the Community, and I'm your host, Sean Anthony. And joining me again is the president and CEO of Homeport, Miss Leah Evans. Miss Evans, welcome back to the program. How are you?
I'm good, Sean. Thank you so much for having me again. It's good to see you.
It is a pleasure to have you as well. So it seems, hard to believe, but it's almost been 9 months since we introduced you to Eye on the Community. And our listening audience definitely appreciate the valuable information you shared before. But as the new leader of Homeport, what has transpired over your first year on the job since we first chatted? And has it
Yeah.
been anything, that you anticipated?
No, no, I don't know that I could have anticipated it, right? Like knowing the organization, having been here with Homeport, I celebrated my 9th year in September, and our work just continues to change and evolve. You may know that we celebrated our 35th anniversary this year, and though our mission remains the same, how we deliver our work in the community and the environment that we work within continues to change around us. And so no, I don't know that I could have, even having already been in the pandemic, knowing, it's a lot of things that we knew. I think we still continue to see such need in our community in affordable housing, so many different issues touched by and affected by housing. And of course, we continue to see new partners coming forward that are wanting to take the heavy load of partnering to do more housing. So I don't know that we could have known where it was going. Me personally, I just can say that the team has been great as I've transitioned, just change, right? Like our relationship dynamics, my partners in the field and in the community, our funders. It's just been a tremendous amount of support for me personally, as well as for our organization in this critical time.
Excellent. You mentioned the 35 years, the anniversary. What have you guys done to recognize this achievement?
Yeah, so we had a big party in October, and really we had a couple hundred people come out to celebrate with us. We honored the Huntington Bank, Steve Steinauer, and gave him our Voice and Vision Award, which is our acknowledgement of those in the community that have used their voice in their leadership to advance housing, and particularly affordable housing. And Huntington has been our partner for 35 whole years. They've supported us financially, but also through their in-kind donations of service. We have Huntington board members that work with us. We have mortgage lenders and their leadership team that work with our housing advisory group. We have, Huntington that's come out and volunteered at our communities. And so really just a great partner, and we wanted to celebrate that. So we really had a good time. It was our first time being in person in 3 years. So we're really pleased and appreciated people being willing to come out in person with us and celebrate the momentous occasion of 35 years.
Excellent, man. Sounds like I missed out on a
You
good
did, you
time.
did. So you mark your calendar for next year. We're going to do a 36
Real
in
good.
October 2023. So I'll make sure you're in the place.
I would appreciate that. Thank you. So remind our audience, a little bit about your background with Homeport and other stops, along your professional career and how it prepared you to your position now.
Yeah, so I'm one of those people that pretty much knew what I wanted to do always. I went to school for urban geography, so urban planning, and stayed at Ohio State and got my master's in city and regional planning. So I kind of have been on this journey around community development and community building. I started as an intern, so I'm a huge proponent of internships. People should get them, work them. I started as an intern at the Ohio Department of Development, which has changed names and now gone back to the Ohio Department of Development since then. But really had a great experience and got to work with the Ohio Office of Housing and Community Partnerships, but also in the Economic Development Division, where I spent about 8 years doing site selection and business development work. And then I went over to the city of Gahanna, which was, a tremendous opportunity to work with one of my mentors. She was running the Department of Development at that time. Her name is Sadiqa White. She had actually come and spoke to our planning program when I was a student. And so, it was almost 10 years later, I got a chance to actually work for her and really, just really had a great experience. That's a great community. Gahanna has gone through a lot of changes itself in leadership and transitions and growth, and really learned a lot working on plans, neighborhood plans, building and development, as well as still doing economic development. And then I came to Homeport again about 9 years ago, really to lead our home ownership work. And from there, started to expand into other parts of the business, including taking over all of our real estate development. So, and that's the path to here. I'd say, on a personal note, just being able to participate in leadership programs and leadership development. I'm a recent graduate of the African American Leadership Academy. I graduated earlier this year under the leadership of Ms. Donna James and Mo Wright and Mr. Larry James. And that organization is doing so much to invest in African American leaders throughout the spectrums, nonprofits, for-profits, entrepreneurs, faith leaders, to really help us have the skills and ability to go out and make change in our community. And so being able to do things like that to just not only my professional skills and my knowledge and be a planner, but also grow those skills that are going to help me to be able to actually navigate in different spaces, to be a leader, to be an influencer, and to advance the work that we're wanting to do.
That is awesome. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
That's quite an achievement. Miss Evans, this past year, you've actually been the face of the organization of Homeport, explaining the need of affordable housing. I'm a radio nerd, so when I get in my car, I'm flipping stations. So I listen to a lot of everything from music format and talk stations. And the conversation I hear a lot lately, especially here in Central Ohio, is the term affordable housing. Talk about the importance of affordable housing and what exactly does that term mean?
Yeah, we tend to get in our own way around this topic in particular, because we want to make it sound more exciting. So you might hear people say workforce housing, you might, other ways of describing it. But what we really mean is that housing that's affordable to you. So Sean and Leah, we're different people. What's affordable to me isn't, and vice versa to you are going to be different. But the standard that we usually look at is that if you're paying more than 30% of your income towards housing expenses, then that is unaffordable and it's unsustainable. And so that's the metric that we're generally using to say that a housing is affordable or not affordable. So then when you step that back and you look at across our community, all of the different jobs and types of work that are out there, how do you have housing that's affordable at every one of those levels? We don't just want housing that's affordable at the highest end. We want housing that's affordable throughout that spectrum so that people can have the stability and security of a regular residence that they can go to, know that that's home, know that that's their foundational basis for success. So when we do our work in the marketplace, you guys know, you see it across the market. Rents are rising, home prices are rising. And so that leaves this gap of what could be affordable to your average income person in our community. And that's where our work comes in. So we develop rental housing that using public sources and private sources to fill the gap so that we can have a rent that's going to be affordable at those different tiers of affordability. So you usually will hear us talk about 60% of the area median income. And that's a measure that we try to have rents that are going to be affordable at or below that benchmark. And that affordability, again, it impacts everything. It impacts transportation and congestion, right? So if all of your affordable housing, let's say if you only have rents affordable on one part of town, but you have jobs on the other side of towns, that's congestion, that's traffic, right? So that affordability affects everything that you think about. It affects our schools. It affects our workforce and our training opportunities. It impacts all of these other social things as well as just the housing in and of itself. And so when we were founded for this purpose, back in the late 80s, our community was going through a population boom at that time, which was huge for us as a community. And the leaders, our local business leaders and civic and faith leaders recognized that there was not homes being developed for the everyday working person. And that's the work that we were tasked with doing and that we still do today.
Makes a lot of sense to me. Thank you for sharing that. I understand that you were a panelist recently at a National Housing Conference in Chicago. Can you tell our listeners, some of the housing challenges we face locally? Are they any different than across the country?
They're really not, but all real estate is local, right? So there are and they aren't. It was a great event. It was for affordable housing developers and financiers and vendors and partners. So a lot of people from our same industry that do what we do, asking the same questions about rising construction costs. That's impacting all of us across the country. Supply chain disruptions is impacting all of us. Interest rate increases are impacting all of us. So we're all having very similar conversations about how do you keep doing what we do in the context of a highly volatile market where prices are changing, going up in some cases. A few of them have come down, just a few, but mostly going up. At the same time, that incomes aren't necessarily going up. So you're still trying to serve that same income population, but your costs are much higher. And so what are you doing in those scenarios? I would say the differences are, of course, in our east and west coast markets. Their markets are very different than ours. Some of our southern markets are a little bit different. One of the variables is getting access to construction workers, like having ready construction availability. We in our market in Central Ohio have so many major multi-million, billion-dollar construction projects going on that construction labor is a big constraint. And that's not something that you see necessarily all over the country, but it's happening other places too, as well as what tools exist locally, regionally, and at the state level to also develop housing. So that's different depending on where you live. Last thing I say is different is policy making. So again, continue to applaud our civic leaders for the city of Columbus, as well as some of our suburban communities that have made policies around affordability, like income protection policies that, you can't discriminate to rent from someone if the source of income is a voucher or something like that. Like some of that policy making is very different across the communities, across the country. Was talking to a community that, has a very stringent eviction policies that they are in their community. So they see a lot more evictions than even what we see, which ours is pretty high per capita. And so those kind of differences also do come into play. But definitely all of us are asking ourselves the same question: how do we do more with less? How do we keep fighting the fight? And also, not only how do we build the housing, but how do we support the residents that live within that housing in the right ways?
Excellent. I could tell you're passionate about this, and that's awesome. What is the housing challenge that remains ahead for our community as we continue to grow and attract people and businesses to our area?
Mm-hmm. Our Central Ohio community-wide success is also a challenge. So having so many businesses wanting to locate here, having so many investors wanting to invest here, that's also a challenge for making sure groups like ourselves that do the affordability are also able to compete in that marketplace. When a piece of land goes for sale and a outstate or out of city or out of country investor can purchase it and push that price up, that's impacting our ability to go ahead and compete for that site as well. So that's good because we have so much wealth and we have so much opportunity coming into our marketplace, but it also makes it a very competitive environment for what it is that we do. And we have to stay attuned to the needs of those that do not have voice at the table. So it's great that we have so much growth and economic prosperity. We want to make sure to continue to lift up everyone in our community so that we all can participate in it. So I do think that that's one of the things that we just got to continue to balance. We can't rest on our laurels and say, oh, we got all these great things going on in the community, we're fine. We have to be looking at how is that success actually being played out in our community? How is it showing up? Who's being left behind and who's not being able to participate in that wealth building or in the stability and the economic success that we see across the community? And I think we also have to, one of the biggest challenges, you asked about the challenge, is that we continue to see a high level of rental assistance need. Yes, we're in year 3 of the pandemic, but we do still see people that are underemployed, unemployed, facing still health challenges, some COVID related, some not COVID related. Childcare challenges are big. So those things are still showing up and making it hard for people to consistently pay rent and have that stable housing.
You said staying attuned. How can one, get privy to certain information? I'm just curious. Do you have any
Yeah.
suggestions?
Yeah, so we have lots of different forums. I'm always impressed that our community has, like you said, you hear affordable housing more, which has been great. And I think that that's an awareness. That's an example of us becoming more attuned. I think that our community has a lot of different entry points for this conversation. You could go, there's websites, right? Like there's Rentful 614, which is a website of just rental resources for like rental assistance and things like that. There's a website that was developed by a young man, entrepreneur, Renter Mentor, which is like all this information about tenants and tenants' rights and tenants' opportunities. We have things like the Columbus Metropolitan Club that has been for decades and decades putting on these community conversations every month. And one of them that they've highlighted for a number of years has been affordable housing. And so being able to participate in rooms like that, our city of Columbus is right now going under a comprehensive rewrite of the zoning code. There are numerous ways for the community to plug into that process. It's called Zone In. And saying, why would you care about zoning? Well, zoning dictates your life. You may not know it, but zoning dictates your life. It tells you what building can go there, where, you see public parks, where you see schools. That's what zoning does. It dictates that land use, and that process hasn't been done in 70 years. And so there are a lot of community opportunities. There's actually a website for that too called Zone. If you go to Columbus Zone In, that's also a resource. And if you haven't heard, recently the YWCA partnered with other leaders in our community to bring the exhibit Undesigned, the Red Line, which is actually going to be traveling. It was at the YWCA, it was at the Coleman Building downtown, and now it's going to be at certain rec centers throughout the next few months and across our community. And it's an exploration of how redlining has resulted in segregation and disinvestment in certain neighborhoods throughout Central Ohio. It's a tremendous resource to just orient yourselves around why is it important that we as a community participate in these conversations. And that's another great just way to plug in at an everyday level, like, why does this matter to me? These are some of the reasons why these things matter.
Now, voters in the city of Columbus approved a $200 million bond issue to support affordable housing. What can that bring to the area in terms of housing development in the city, and what role can suburbs play in helping the needs as well?
Yeah. So I first want to say thank you to all the City of Columbus voters for doing that, for voting that and passing that $200 million investment. That's 4 times as much as the last bond offering. So previously the city went to the voters for 50 million. Now this is 200 million, recognizing the need for continued and sustained investment in affordable housing. So we're excited. It's if I give you a couple of examples, 2 of our projects that we're working on right now receive funding from that first 50 million. One is in Linden. So if you're driving down Cleveland Avenue and you see this building right there on the corner of Cleveland and Myrtle, that's a project that benefited from these bond dollars. Another project is up at Easton. So if you've got driving by over at Easton and you're over there by the Trader Joe's and you see some construction of new housing units, that's a project that benefited from those bond dollars as well. So those dollars are at work already. And what you'll see is more projects like that in those opportunity areas, in those prime places where people want to live, being developed as affordable. So not only is it just housing being built, it's affordable housing being built in those great opportunity areas. And I think the mayor has done a great job of talking about this globally, right? This is the 200 million that the city is investing, but also across our region, what are some of our suburban peers doing? As I said, some of the suburban communities that we've been talking to are doing policies. So like actual, policies to make it easier to live in affordable housing, existing housing that's in the community, but also looking at some financing structures that they can do at the community level. And of course, our county has been great. Franklin County has been great as well, created a whole new program just to fund additional affordable housing at the county level as well. So I think we have some really smart people. We have some people doing some great work. The need is tremendous, and we've definitely stacked hands in this moment to bring the resources to the work too. But this, again, our community is growing by about 5. For every 5 people we grew by, we added 1 housing unit. So we have a big gap in how many housing units that we need to bring online in the next several decades. And so it's going to take sustained commitment and investment from across the region to do that.
Excellent. As we conclude, Ms. Evans, how can, if an organization or an individual is interested in helping and supporting what you guys do at Homeport, how can they do so? And where can people learn more information about Homeport?
Yes, please come to our website. So in addition to, of course, development, we also provide home buyer services, which you didn't talk about a lot today, but home buyer education classes, financial counseling, credit and budgeting. And then for our residents, we provide direct resident services. So I encourage anyone who's interested in our home buyer education services to visit homeportlearning.org. So that's a one word, homeportlearning.org. We also have homeportliving.org. So if you are interested in living in one of our Homeport properties or your Homeport resident, then that's where you would get more information. And if you just globally want to know about Homeport, more about affordable housing, please visit homeportohio.org, where you can connect with any one of our team members and find out more about the work that we're doing throughout Central Ohio.
Excellent. She is the president and CEO of Homeport, Miss Leah Evans. Thank you so much for sharing this valuable information on Eye on the Community.
Thank you so much, Sean. It was so good to see you, and I appreciate your interest in this important topic.
Likewise. Thank you.